late night conservative talk, Hackheads Radio.
Hack news. Hack news.
Radio.
Hack news. Hack news.
Radio.
The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show, live here on the SHR Media Network. It is the 22nd of October, 2014. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Ken McClinton, for warming everyone up. And more, well, let's face it, we're the after show, but that's not important, really. I mean, I like to say warm up because it makes me feel better. We're
the party.
We're like the after party.
Yeah, Ken's the business.
Which
if we were a mullet, Ken would be the business in the front, and we're the party in the back.
That is an outstanding, a great analogy.
Right?
That's
Thank
perfect.
You. Yeah, SHR Media on Wednesday nights. We're like a mullet.
Ken's the steak, we're the ice cream. Egg says
Why?
In the chat.
Because steak is darker?
Well, I
and
guess.
Vanilla, you get 2 scoops of white. I get it.
I guess that's what Egg is saying. I mean, it's far be it from me to argue
with Egg
on that. I'm just saying. So much to talk about this week. First and foremost, I want to send out our thoughts, prayers, and well wishes to our good friend Dan Butch over at Pundit Press. Great partner to our network, great friend. Well, he's really just been nothing but amazingly supportive of us since we found each other, and he is a wonderful human being, and I can't say enough good things about him. And I without going into it, it's his personal business, but we're hoping he feels better here at SHR, and as soon as you're ready, seriously, I have a bunch of stuff to dump on you. I mean, dude. Get back to, but you get well, my friend, and our thoughts and prayers are with you. How are you? Good. Sacco, how are you?
Don't speak.
Don't speak.
I wish I had that song, but I don't have the board. I don't know how any of that stuff works.
That's exactly what he was thinking.
Perfect, yeah. That's Sacco, what do you think about world events? And that's what goes on in his brain. Matter of fact, that's how we recorded that sound, I'm pretty sure.
You know what's funny is it doesn't happen often that when Sacco's listening to either us or Ken's show or whatever, that he has a comment. But tonight when Ken was talking about essentially the tax breaks for churches and the fact that they don't need them, that was one of the first times I've heard Sacco pipe up and really agree. And so, we're finally getting there. He's finally starting to actually pay attention, because everyone doesn't realize he doesn't pay attention to a word we say on the show. He doesn't listen to us at all. Right? No. He has his timer set up.
Right, and he's on Facebook, and
right.
Once in a while he'll put it and hit a button and something will happen.
He gets the little alarm on his phone, and then he's like, "Oh, I got to send them to commercial. Time to close the door." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But he doesn't actually listen.
Producer stuff.
Producer. Well, yeah, but you broke it. You broke it.
You broke your microphone.
He is playing Call of Duty.
Listen, Sacco, you're playing Call of Duty, and you're a drunk. I mean, what are you doing right now at this moment? You're drinking beer, yes.
He's mixing coffee with beer, the world's greatest invention.
Which one, coffee or beer?
Both. Oh, man.
Did you just cough? Do you have Ebola?
I do not have Ebola. I have allergies.
We'll get to that later in the show.
We're
trying to showbiz the board.
That's me.
What's
wrong? The one thing I get in trouble for. Oh, hold on. I got to put the glasses on so I can see. The one thing I always get in trouble for.
You're like Prote from K-Pax in here. For those of you that don't know, Sean wears these sunglasses in here, and their prescription, he says.
They are.
I think they just look cool. But he looks like Prote.
That's exactly what I look like. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, boy. How was your week?
Who's ahead right now in the World Series? KC, right?
No, Giants are up 1-0.
No. I meant in this game right now.
Oh, KC is, yes.
Yeah. Huh. They're a scrappy team.
Yeah.
They are a really good team.
Well, you know what's funny is, everyone assumes because we're on this coast that we are automatically rooting for the Giants, and we're American League fans.
We're both American League fans.
And
as a matter of fact, the Giants are the reason why my beloved A's have the white elephant as the sign.
Absolutely. And it's also one of the things, too, is for the history of the game, which we pay attention to, it's nice to see the Royals get back, and they fought for it. They deserved it. They're a hard-hitting team, so I got to root for the Royals this year. I really do.
See, I'm kind of torn because I grew up seeing the Giants as well as the A's, so I really I like the Giants. They're typically my number 2 team. However, I find myself in a very weird position in that this KC team, they're young, they're scrappy, they're very good, and they beat the A's.
Yeah.
I mean...
No, they kind of got themselves there, so I can't really complain.
They're kind of pulling on my heartstrings a little bit. my one heartstring that I have.
The one you have
tugged,
is actually being hurt right now.
Yeah,
no, I understand that.
I
understand that.
You tugged on what the other day? Sacco, we're not talking about that. You can't talk about that on the air right now. I don't care what you tugged on the other day. It's not a tug toner. There's no such thing. Jesus. Must have been a short stroke.
Oh man, like my golf game. So anyhow,
well, yeah. What do you think I was talking about?
I know it's golf. That's what's important. Is you worry about golf. All the times you've talked about golf, I can't get a word in edgewise. As soon as I mention the G word to you, you're like, oh, golf.
I know. I mean, we go to the G spot all the time. The golfing spot, the place where we always go to golf. That spot. That's where we go. Matter of fact, we've got a putter here. We call it the G spot, the golf spot.
That's
right
where
there
we putt
in the
over
corner.
in the corner.
That's where we go. Yeah,
it is. Hey, Sacco, are we keeping you awake over there? Sorry, buddy.
It's funny because Sacco actually looked at us when that went in and said, "This is the only G spot I've ever found." Remember that?
Thank God you guys installed it. I've been looking for this forever.
I know, right?
Sacco.
I always meant to get into golf. I know
Sacco, trust me, the same reason why we had it installed, we couldn't find it either. We figured it was just easier.
Listen, we know for a fact that it's mythical, so we installed our own. It's like a freaking unicorn, okay? It's the sackhead unicorn right there.
Oh, Egg says, just remember it's all about the right grip. It makes all the difference. And the show's already gone downhill. Not bad. 8 minutes in. 8 minutes in, and we've already put it in the toilet. It can only get better now.
That's not bad.
That's good for us.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know.
I don't know where to go from here because that was just classic. Like, I could wrap the show up right now. I could throw both hands in the air and be like,
peace.
That's a win.
You're like Will
Touchdown.
Ferrell at the end, on Old School, at the end of his debate with Jim Carville. You're just done.
Yeah, just done. Perfect. We nailed it. That was perfect.
So, I don't know if I'm sure you heard real quick is the...
Are you holding a missile in your hand?
A magic missile.
You actually are.
I am.
You're holding a toy cannonball.
Yes.
And I know what that's from.
I know.
That's from the pirate ship.
I know it is.
It's awesome.
It's huge.
Why does the ball have bumps on it?
Listen. It's going to be interesting.
Sacco's on fire
Wow,
tonight.
Sacco with the razor burn joke. Amazing. Good job, Sacco. We got to keep loading him full of beer before a show, huh?
I know, right?
Our audio may be all jacked up, but damn it, he's funny.
He's funny.
Did you hear about the autopsy out of Ferguson?
No.
So the autopsy finally came out, and it looks like all evidence is pointing to the fact that the Brown was in the car when he was shot. So he wasn't shot running away and walking away like everyone was trying to get everyone to believe. Again, recall back to Trayvon, how all of a sudden when the facts are starting to come out, it's much different than the reality that was being perceived by...
we haven't heard much from that case anyways since it came out, the officer's injuries.
Yeah, the officer's injuries are
he
huge.
was trying to... And then the video came out of this guy, manhandling the store clerk.
Yep, and then now it looks like he had close proximity powder burns. His blood or DNA was inside the car, which backs up the story...
Of the officer
that he was attacked inside the car. So
I think his broken orbital backs his story up that he was attacked.
Well, we don't know if it was broken before.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. We don't know that he didn't break it himself, right? Just to try and frame this poor innocent defenseless young man.
It's sad that it even has to come to this. And again, in this country, one of the things that we have to do is It's one of those things that we never wait for evidence to come out. And here's the difference.
When did law enforcement become the bad guys? Have you noticed this lately?
But I also blame law enforcement, or I don't blame the law enforcement officers. I blame the PR people for them because, and I understand why they hold back a lot of information, but they're not as forthcoming as. And prime example today with Canada, and I know I'm not showboating it, but one of the things that I really like that was different is that they brought out information quick, and I'll get into that later. But I think it adds, it takes away from people's ability to kind of exaggerate the reality.
So do you think there would have been a different outcome in Ferguson? Do you think the perception would have been different if all of the facts came out right away?
Maybe not in Ferguson itself, but through the country.
I disagree. I think people have such a dislike for. Look, we're going backwards. I honestly think that the golden age of law enforcement, through like the 80s and 90s and even into the early 2000s, is kind of past. We're at a point now.
But it's authority in general.
We're at a point now where there is and I don't know where it came from. Where particularly the younger generation automatically thinks law enforcement is bad and evil, almost like we're going back to the freaking 60s.
Well, but I think it's authority in general. I think you see it more because with law enforcement, it's much more newsworthy, and if you will, because it sells, unfortunately, so it gets put to the forefront. But I think youth in general, they trust government when it pays for everything in their house and it pays for free stuff and free phones and this and that and the other thing, but they don't trust it when there are rules involved.
See, I don't think that it's even a government thing.
They
want more government until more government shows up, and that more government is cops and riot gear.
But it's also the best of. It's also the best of both worlds. Right? But it's the best of all worlds.
But hang on a second. When more government shows up, it's cops and riot gear, right?
Not always.
But sometimes when they get out of hand, which is funny to me.
But imagine. But I always say this: it's how it affects them, or how they perceive it as affecting them. If all of a sudden we just stopped giving out the Obama phones. But listen to me for a second.
I am.
If we stopped giving out the Obama phones, or if Berkeley was like, hey, you know what, that whole free weed thing, we were just kidding, we're taking it back, then you'll start seeing, and you do see it, if you really read a lot of the blogs and stuff out there from the left, you see the younger writers and the younger generations, they get pissed when government dares try to take something back. Because all of a sudden...
You mean become smaller?
Yes. In general.
That's what I just said.
And I understand
but I'm talking specifically about I think we're talking about two separate things. But I'm talking specifically about police.
I understand what you're specifically talking about.
Well, then why are you going off about something totally unrelated?
But I think it's an umbrella thing that just gets highlighted because of what we see on the news.
Okay. You're expanding it beyond what I intended it to be expanded.
I understand
I see what you're saying.
Right.
So, but why is it, and I'm talking about law enforcement specifically, why is it that there is such a hatred for law enforcement specifically in this? And I'm not talking, it's not even just the youth, it's older people, there are a lot of people, right?
It's very dependent on where people live. And I would even
when is the last time you saw a positive news story about law enforcement?
In Texas, about 2 weeks ago, there was the young kid playing football by himself. Okay. There was another story like that. They do show them, but they don't get the same airplay because it's not quote-unquote news sexy.
They don't. So you may get the local stories that have a positive spin towards law enforcement.
And shows like Ag do them all the time.
But if there is a negative story,
it
goes nationwide.
No, but I understand that. And so I think part of it is the fault of media because they're not being responsible. And I say that all the time. I'm not saying we should ever limit media. We've had this discussion before. I don't think...
Where is the shift in the culture that made that change?
Oh, I really think social media is one of the biggest issues.
Okay, and that's kind of where I'm going.
I really believe social media is a horrible thing. We use it for our show, but other people use it to undermine a lot of different things.
Yes.
They attack government. They attack... You look at the feckless and faceless attacks on politicians, people... anyone and everything that it can be used for, it does get used for.
And I bring this Ferguson thing up. The cops could act completely within the law, be completely justified in their actions, and the assumption is automatically that they did something wrong.
Right.
As opposed to hey, we're going to assume that this person did the right thing, and then if he didn't, hey, then we look at the proof and we take the appropriate action.
And I say all the time,
right?
if a cop steps over the line, just like a firefighter or any other public servant.
Okay, hang on a second. How many times when firefighters step over the line do those hose dragging Neanderthals ever get in trouble? Right? And I love those guys.
I know you do.
No, I do. Look,
I
they're
know.
public servants.
We've
and
talked about it before.
We have. But I bring that out to illustrate this, right? People will jump to the defense by the fact that I said that.
Oh, immediately.
Immediately.
I know. And they
right?
do.
Yet if I called the cops those gun-toting Neanderthals,
Right.
people would be high-fiving each other. Yeah.
Donut munchers.
Right. But that's kind of my point and why I bring that up. Fire guys do no wrong.
Well,
right?
In mass media, right.
In mass media, they do no wrong. They could have hookers, prostitutes, porn stars climbing
and prime
up,
example, the
climbing up on
Cal
their...
Fire battalion chief this year who murdered his mistress and was on the run and had guns and was hiding and all this other stuff didn't make national news. But if that was a police officer...
Like Dorner,
it's all over the place. So, but a lot of it does have to do with mass media. People don't like, I think, cops in general because cops are the people that show up to tell you can't do something because it's bad. People don't like being told what to do.
because people are perpetually 2 years old.
Right.
Because
Despite the fact that we're a nation of laws.
We're an instant gratification society.
Exactly. Everything's instant gratification. We're a nation of laws. Nobody likes
We
that.
get everything right now.
Yeah.
Right? For example...
Everything's flashed right in front of our eyes, ASAP.
Okay, so 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you and I wanted to get a hold of a family member or a friend. We'd call them on the phone, correct? If they didn't answer the phone, we'd try back later. Right? No big deal. Right now, you try and get a hold of a friend, and they don't answer the phone.
It never happens that way.
You send them a text message, right? And if they don't respond to your text message, you get pissed. And I'm not talking about you specifically, but just people in general.
I get pissed.
Right? I know you do.
Dude, I get mad, and you've done this, and it's not on purpose. I know you don't do it on purpose, or at least I don't think you are on purpose, is you'll call me, you won't leave a message, I'll call you back less than a minute later, and I go right to voicemail. And I'm like, dude, no way.
because I'm trying to call your other number.
I'm like, which one? I got like 5 of them.
Exactly.
But I'm like, dude, no way. I know you're sitting there looking at the phone. You go, screw him. He should have answered me. Because I know you, and I know how you are. But we're an instant gratification society. And it's funny. I'm reading in the chat room, and I'm really happy other people do notice this. Because, my father was a cop, and cops always hold a special place in my heart. And amazingly, and everyone always like, oh, you didn't grow up with the same thing, but I grew up in a pretty bad neighborhood at times, and I've been stopped when I was a kid numerous times. I was never treated like dirt.
Uh-huh.
Usually if I was in quote-unquote the wrong neighborhood, and I'll tell you right now, in Boston, if you're in one part of Dorchester, and it's not the Irish part, and you're walking down the street just randomly, you're going to get stopped because you don't belong. And sadly... And amazingly, too, is the cops in those areas really know their neighborhoods well enough to know kind of who belongs and who doesn't. And they'll stop you because usually if you don't belong, you're there doing something you're not supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm looking at Ag in the chat room. There's the 2 cops. There's the cop that bought the woman the booster seat instead of giving her a ticket for the kid. There's the cops in Florida that rescued the puppy out of the hot parking lot. I can also think of there was a cop down in New Mexico that bought all the homeless people lunch because the shelter ran out of food and water that day. There was like something happened. You do see those stories, just not enough. They're not highlighted enough.
And that's the thing. They're not highlighted. You'll see those in a local paper, and a blogger or somebody may pull it out, but it's not hitting.
It's not national news.
It's not national
unless
news.
Unless Brian Williams likes it personally, you don't see it on NBC News or anything like that because it has nothing to do with that. People immediately say, oh, why do you defend them? And I always say, because we are a nation of laws, and they're the ones that maintain that.
Speaking of nation of laws, did you hear the United Nations officials actually invaded Detroit?
Yes,
this week.
Yes, the United Nations has gone a full-blown invasion of Detroit.
Which is weird because Detroit is liberal. They should love these people, right? And by these people, I mean the United Nations people. It's Detroit. I didn't want any assumptions being made by the fact that I said these people, based upon your comment last week.
So essentially, go on.
So there was these UN representatives visited Detroit for 3 days, and I don't know why it wasn't really a visit, but they basically said that Detroit has been shutting off. Look, they're in bankruptcy.
Oh, yeah.
And there were
50 years, 70 years of Democrats right there for you, folks.
Yeah, and
just so you know.
there were people that haven't paid their water bill in a ridiculous amount of time. So the city started shutting them down because they were like, we can't afford to supply water. Yes, water is kind of a necessity, but the city can't afford to supply water to folks who don't pay their bills, whatever the case is. So they've been shutting their water off. They've been disconnecting some of the residents' water. And Catarina de Albuquerque,
not to be confused with New Mexico.
Right, said, quote, it is contrary to human rights to disconnect water from people who simply do not have the means to pay their bills. So what does Albuquerque suggest we do for the homeless folks? Give them a hose?
They don't have a home.
Hook it up to a water source and allow them to travel with said hose?
Ooh, what if we give them a whole bunch of those hydration packs?
But what if that hose now has a limit? Now are they bound, and are they now in bondage, which they may enjoy? At what point do you draw the line? And what the frick is the United Nations
first of all
doing in Detroit?
I want to check the
and
green
why
cards of both those people.
Did Detroit PD
not hook them
for invasion of
something? Check it for their green cards. Let's start there. You know what? It's what.
Who invited them here? Were they invited in? Did they just show up?
They just showed up. It's
because
the United Nations. They don't need permission. It's the United Nations. It's the United Nations. They just show up. What if we? And this pisses me off on a lot of different levels. And first and foremost, the water the water gets paid for to pump it, the lights, all that stuff. It costs money.
Yeah.
But the other thing doing is when you get a house, you enter an agreement with the city for water. It's a contractual agreement. Whether you want to or not, that's a different story. I guess you could go the way of a water tower if you needed to, or a water delivery. I guess there's other ways that you could go. But the
Romans had an aqueduct.
But I want to know, what about electricity? What if all of a sudden
water and electricity don't mix?
All right, good. And you hold on to that thought for a minute. I just want you to work that one out.
Well, you said
no. I want you to work that one out.
Shh,
just work that one out.
Okay, go.
But what about electricity? If the United Nations deems
they don't mix,
the look on your face. If the United Nations deems electricity is a necessity of life, just like water, and now you have all these private electric companies who can no longer shut it off, who's going to bear the burden of that cost? The people that pay it for a while. Because, all right, our rates will go up, and we'll pay to pay for the electricity of the people that don't want to.
They're bankrupt.
But that will be power companies if the UN, if there was follow-through with this, and I don't know if
this is why.
Follow-through, but if the UN deemed electricity was as important as water, then you would start having this happen with the electric companies.
This is why we need to do away with cities and municipalities. This is why we just need simply a strong federal government. We need to do away with states. We need to do away with counties and cities, and this whole problem would go away. The federal government should solve this.
Federal government solves all.
I have an expletive.
I want to know how the federal government was with the UN going, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Yeah, I have an expletive for the UN.
Okay.
But I'm not going to say it right now because this is a G-rated show. Speaking of G-rated shows, have you heard about the Down for Disney campaign?
No, I haven't. Tell me about this.
I don't know that it's really a campaign. Oh, it was a play on words. I didn't even mean to do that, really. So this couple has a Down syndrome daughter, and they have petitioned Disney to have a Down syndrome princess.
Okay.
Because they feel that it's people with disabilities are underrepresented in Disney movies. So,
okay.
So they do have a child with Down syndrome. Okay. And I think they have a blog for folks with Down syndrome families. And I'm thinking about, hey, has Disney ever had characters with disabilities?
Dopey.
Okay.
Dopey.
Nemo. Right?
Yeah, Nemo.
With his fin.
And Dory.
And
She
Dory,
had a
the
mental illness. Yep.
Hunchback
Hunchback, absolutely.
of Notre Dame.
Yep. Aladdin, he was a compulsive liar.
Compulsive liar. Yeah.
That could be deemed a mental illness, right?
Well, yeah. I suppose.
Yeah. No,
Eeyore from Winnie the Depression.
Absolutely, depression.
Yes.
Good one,
Good
Sacco.
job, Sacco. I like that one.
We could keep going.
Yeah. Snow White was in a coma.
Well, she was either that or narcoleptic. It depended on how you want. And then she was a burglar.
Yeah, and she was a burglar.
She could have been a thief.
Yeah.
So we're covering that now. Right. Well, no.
We need to celebrate criminals.
But what if her
Sacco.
criminal behavior was pushed by a mental illness?
Who would the villain be? So you could work this in. You could work this into The Incredibles. I think that was Disney Pixar, right?
Yes, Disney Pixar and The Incredibles.
Because the villain was Syndrome.
Yes.
What?
Explain. You're right. In the first one,
Look! If a princess is battling a syndrome,
all right, I got you. Oh man.
why are you laughing?
Oh, I love The Incredibles. It was a
So
great
here's what
movie.
I would actually like to see happen. If Disney did this, I would like to see them donate the proceeds. If they were really doing this not for a PR stunt, and I want to get serious here for a moment. If Disney was not doing this as a PR stunt, I would like to see them donate the proceeds from the movie to a cause, to a charity that deals with folks who are suffering from this disorder or who have this disability. Right? Because otherwise, and here's my feelings on it. I'm making fun of it not because I'm a complete ass, because I am a little bit. But here's why.
Well,
because I honestly think that this is just a stunt.
Right. I agree with you.
I don't take this seriously. If it is serious, that's great. If it's serious and if Disney does this, I would like to see them donate the proceeds to it. Otherwise, I think it's just
a stunt.
Like a politically correct stunt to try and be all touchy-feely, feel-good, all-inclusive. Does that make sense?
If the parents did it to raise awareness, they know that Disney's probably not going to bite. But if they did it to raise awareness, that's fine. There's other ways to go about it. I don't like this. And we were talking about this earlier, that instant gratification. This is a headline, a get-quick headline. I don't like that. If you want to raise headlines, instead of going to the public, why don't you contact Disney directly and say, hey, you know what, we'd like to work on raising awareness for special needs children, Down syndromes. There's a bunch of different great charities out there that really could use the help. How can we do that?
Right. Look, there have been people throughout history, brilliant people have been brilliant in their own ways with certain, like Vincent van Gogh.
Yeah.
Was nuts, right? Brilliant, though.
Yeah.
Brilliant artist. So there's ways to do it. I read this story and I was like, I don't know. I didn't know what to make of it because it could be really good or really bad. So look, I'm going to make fun of it.
We'll use satire to explain it.
Right, but from a serious note, if this is a serious way to raise awareness, we will do our part to assist with that if that's in fact what it is. But look, if you're going to do this, donate a large chunk of the proceeds or all the proceeds.
All the proceeds.
To raise awareness.
Ag saying the same thing in the chat room. Hey, have a day where all the proceeds from your ticket sales. I'd go that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe in it. I really do believe in it. And like I said, if these parents are doing it to just raise awareness, I don't think Disney's going to do it. I don't think – I'm sure if they listen to our show now, they're going to turn around and be like, oh, we've done that. Look at Dopey.
Right, yeah, we've done that. Dopey.
We did that way a long time ago. But I don't like it when people kind of exploit something to get what they want. I never have. We talk about instant gratification, but more importantly, we talk about kind of being true to. Go ahead, Sacco. This scares me.
Sorry to cut you off, Sean. I don't want to
No.
get off topic.
When you get way up and come running over and grab the mic out like that, I knew something's wrong.
Yeah, I ran over here. It was I had this question.
Yes.
And I just had to ask it. And I want you to chime in. This is a serious question to Sean specifically.
Yes.
Why do you have your sunglasses on?
We talked about this earlier. They're prescription,
You
so I
put
can
'em on.
read.
Those are not prescription. Let me see those.
No, they are.
Those are prescription.
Those are prescription.
Can you read in the dark?
I can read the computer because it's backlit, knucklehead.
Where's your glasses at?
They're. I don't know. No, they're in the
You look
car.
like a fool.
I keep a pair in the car just to drive with at night because I have horrible night vision.
And you've worn sunglasses for the last 2 years.
And he just picked
by the
up on
way.
it. I do it all the time.
Right, all 2 years. So wait, I said that for 2 reasons. one, he just picked up on it, and 2, why are you still wearing freaking sunglasses?
Because I can't. I never think about it. Hey, real quick, Egg said that he.
No, the
Egg
door's closed.
No, wait. Egg says that he agrees that it's a stunt, but it would bug him. It would bug him to see a blind kid being used that way. And I was just wondering how Egg would actually see the blind kid being used that way. Because I think, it doesn't matter.
You know what? That's almost
We're
as
gonna be
bad
back-
as with the Down for syndrome villain.
We'll be back at 3 here
But
on
I see what you're
Sackets
talking
Radio on
about.
the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Here's radio.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Egg, I'm sorry. I couldn't let it go. You know I couldn't let that go. It was just too easy. I got to put on my sunglasses and see the board. Hold on. You know what?
You should
I don't
know.
wanna,
It's only your segment to freaking introduce.
I can't see it. What is it?
What can't you see? It's the terror block.
Oh, it's Canada. We have that number 2. Okay, well.
No.
So to change topics completely, this morning in Parliament Hill in Ottawa, Canada, a gunman walked up and essentially murdered a reservist soldier outside their war memorial. Kind of like our Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. It's staffed 24/7 by special members of the military. And obviously it's a memorial to all of the Canadians that have fought and died in different wars. Active shooter then, we believe, and the stories, it's still coming out. We don't know 100%. Entered the Parliament building in Center Block, where he eventually was engaged after making his way in. And I don't know how many rounds he fired entering. They haven't released that yet. There's an amazing video out there of when he was finally contacted by the cops inside. And he was shot by Sergeant-at-Arms. His last name's Vickers. He was a 20-year RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer. And then he's been the Sergeant-at-Arms for Parliament. And I really, from what everyone read, and it's one of those things, Canada was quick to put his name out, so I immediately started doing research. Like within an hour of them announcing that the first shooter was dead, and I'm going to keep going, but that first shooter was died, they immediately put out his name. Hey, this is the hero that stopped this guy. Mm-hmm. This is and he's going to be a national hero, and he should be.
He's going to be a target too.
He's going to be a target, and I don't think this guy cares. If you do some research on this Vickers guy, he's kind of an old school dude, and I think he's one of those guys like, go ahead, let me be a target. I put this dude down, not worried about it. There were also shots allegedly fired at a mall nearby or outside a mall nearby.
Afterwards. So 30 shots fired at. Sorry.
Did you just?
That's like
Did you just say 30 farts?
Yeah, 30 farts fired. Why? It's like shots fired. Sacco's been drinking beer. I'm sorry.
How did that happen? Go on.
So. 30 shots fired, but they're saying this was actually could be a connection. There were two soldiers that were attacked also in Quebec.
Yeah,
on Monday
by an Islamist, a self-proclaimed Islamist. This guy, his name is Michael Zahif Bebou. He's French Canadian who converted. He has a long criminal history. Converted to Islam, and
shocking.
And there's a bunch of stories out there right now, and you know, as I was saying, one of the things that Canada did well that I thought really kind of kept people from hypothesizing and adding their own spin to thing is they released facts as they had them. They gave out this guy's name really quick. I mean, you look at in this country when people get arrested, you don't hear their name. So you know, sometimes you don't hear their names for a few days, or they try to. They got this guy's name out right away. They got the officer's name out right away. They got. The young soldier who was murdered, they got his name out right away. And if you haven't seen the video, there's a video out there almost immediately after the shot was fired. And, you know, CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, has a studio right there. So they had cameras on scene pretty quick. And there's a video within a few moments of the shots being fired of the civilians doing CPR on this young man, the military reservist. And you know, my heart broke because if you have to do CPR that quick, it's never good. And this young man, Corporal Nathan Cirillo, 24-year-old reservist from Hamilton, Ottawa, from what I'm hearing from different people, this was a special assignment for the day that he earned. He's a reservist. This isn't his full-time assignment. This was something that he earned and apparently worked really hard to get. And it was, you know, a young man. 24 is just a kid. Serving his country, much like I would say if he was an American, you know, I'm guessing he's a really good kid that wanted to serve his nation. And really, this attack really rattled the Canadians. If you read the blogs, and I was on this all day trying to follow up on this, you know, a lot of Canadians said, you know, we kind of expected this could happen, but we never expected it would happen type thing. That was kind of the reaction. Mm-hmm. I did, and I forgot his name, one of the prime ministers, somebody tried to get him his quote saying, well, is this Canada's 9/11? And I give him credit because he turned around and he said, this is two totally separate things. You know, 4,000 people died that day.
Yeah.
You know, let's not jump to conclusions. The entire downtown Ottawa, which is the capital, was in lockdown all day. The prime minister's, which is like their president, for those who don't know, but the prime minister's office actually sits right on a street corner outside Parliament. it's a security nightmare for those that have to protect them. But it really threw the whole downtown. And all of Canada, they locked every federal building down and military bases. They urged, after the attack that happened in Quebec 2 days earlier than this.
2 Canadian soldiers were run over.
One died.
One of them died.
They urged their military members that if you are not on base and actively engaged in military business, to not wear your uniform off base. It recalls back to London last year where the 2 soldiers were attacked and killed with a hatchet in the middle of the street, and there was that guy that was interviewed. But for those in America who, again, have a tendency to ignore the potential bad things that could happen here, they're already saying that there may be an ISIS connection.
Mm-hmm.
They're already saying that this is an Islamist extremist. Canada called it terrorism immediately. It wasn't a workplace violence or anything like that, like we would call it in this country.
It's a senseless violence thing that we need to
Yes, it's senseless violence,
again.
but that's not what
gun
the
laws
motive
would have stopped this. Right.
It's the motive that you have to worry about. And that was the problem. Or that is the problem, if you will. So it really scary. And our thoughts and prayers are with our friends in Canada because, somebody said it the other day, Canada is the good neighbor. And the people of Canada have been very supportive of our nation. And I can remember after 9/11 the amount of support from Canadians and every tragedy that we've really had in this country, especially that's the good part about social media, again, and being able to read Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. The message is coming from Canadians when we have a tragedy here with their support and their love and their prayers, and that's something I think in this nation that we need to do as well. And because there may not have been, fortunately, a lot of bloodshed in this incident, but it was at their capital. It was in their parliamentary building, which is like our Congress. It was a serious attack, and it could have got worse.
Well, like you said, there was the mall was less than a mile away, and there were shots
fired there.
Fired at the mall.
There was more than one
well.
shooter, and they're almost 100% confident there was more than one shooter. I heard early on, I was listening to Ottawa police on the scanner when all this really started, and I was trying to get info. They were worried that there may have been somebody in an elevated position, almost like an Overwatch cover person, and that there was a vehicle that fled. There was really a whole bunch of things going on. And it shows you how, there could be 2 more out there. There could be 3 more out there. There could be a lot more out there. But when we talk about, and I know we have certain listeners that hate the term lone wolf, but the common phrase that's used to describe these types of attacks is that lone wolf attack. When we talk about this could have very easily been anywhere in our country. If they're in Canada, it's actually kind of easy for them to get down here if they're Canadian citizens, which this guy was. We would have no reason to block him from entering the country as long as he had his passport and all that stuff. So it's starting to happen more and more, and we're starting to see it more and more. We had that case out of Seattle, New Jersey a month or 2 ago. Then we had the beheading in Oklahoma not too long ago. Again, another one where a lot of Canadians gave their thoughts and prayers. And I was listening to a Canadian security specialist, and he used to work for their equivalent of Homeland Security, and he essentially said, sadly, we do not take this serious enough, and we do not understand the threat that is at our doorstep. Our policies create some of these threats, but just our existence are the reason of these threats, and we do not look at the face of terror, essentially, and let it be known that we will not be trifled with. And the Prime Minister did have actually a very, very strong statement this evening, the Prime Minister of Canada, and that was good to see. But, I feel like we're not that far behind. And listen, RCMP and Ottawa Police are all there was questions on how they responded. And yeah, I don't know if they train for stuff like this because they've never really happened. It happened 30 years ago in Canada. They had an active shooter inside their parliamentary building, but the threat has never really been made toward Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It's always towards us, and and like he said, the guy said, we ride America's coattails into a lot of conflict, and they end up taking the brunt of the abuse from the world for being the bad guys. But fact of the matter is we are just as involved. And whatever the cause and whether you agree or disagree, the fact is there could be a backlash for our actions, and this is one of those backlashes, and we were lucky that it wasn't a lot worse today.
I agree. President Obama came out and obviously said that, in essence, that hey, our thoughts and prayers go out to our Canadian brethren. I can't help but wonder, though, and you pretty much covered the Canada incident very well. I can't help wondering what that means for the United States.
Right. Well,
and look, we've said it. We've said it the last several weeks on this show. We've said it even before that. It's only a matter of time before it happens here. We've already seen, like you indicated, the beheadings in Oklahoma and so forth. So we know they're here. But what about this type of just straight up attack on a seat of government, or even just through populated areas within the United States? I looked up gun laws in Canada just because. Look, I honestly think this is an answer here in our country that isn't really being seriously discussed in most places. But in Canada, there is no legal right to possess firearms, to possess arms. They have I think it's like 60 days in order to purchase a gun there, a firearm. Handguns are restricted. There are no non-restricted handguns. They're either restricted or prohibited outright. You have to have them over, I think the barrel has to be over 4.1 inches or something of that nature. So it's very strict. The process for purchasing a firearm in Canada is very strict. They're not outright banned or prohibited. However, here in the United States, I really think, and again, we've talked about it before, but I really think that we could do such a better job of protecting ourselves without having to spend federal dollars to do it.
Yes.
And without having to hire more federal officers, or without having to put National Guard or military reserve folks in situations in cities or whatnot. And that is quite simply to affirm the Second Amendment as a right for individuals and roll back restrictive state laws, because it is a federal issue and it is a guaranteed right under the Constitution that states should not have the authority to restrict or control. Just like they can't restrict or control your Fifth Amendment, or they can't restrict your Sixth Amendment, why are they able to restrict your Second Amendment?
Right.
Doesn't make sense to me.
No, I agree.
And it's
with
such a simple step and such a simple thing that would really probably cause not only the criminals, but any folks trying to do terror in a public area reason to pause.
Severely pause.
Right? Now, look, if the NFL or MLB or anybody wants to prohibit firearms at their events,
they have the right to do that.
Not. I don't think the NFL has a right to ban it at all of their events. But if a particular stadium, because that's private property, if a particular stadium says, you know what, we don't want anybody carrying firearms in our stadiums, hey, then you, as somebody who chooses to exercise your right, have the option to not attend that particular sporting event, right?
Yeah.
Or sneak it in. But in public places, for example, in the Parliament House, at war memorials, things that are public property, you wouldn't have that same issue.
No.
And I really think that it would cause more of these folks who are just waiting for the right time to attack us serious pause. It would give them serious pause.
Right. And we talk about Japan in World War II, and one of the reasons why they never thought they could invade the actual
behind every blade of grass.
Domestic United States, is behind every blade of grass there'd be an American with a gun is pretty much what they were afraid of. And they were right.
Yeah, they were.
At the time, they were definitely right. So, it's one of those things that there's proof in that pudding. There's actual substance to base that off of. It's not just a whole bunch of, us crazy gun-loving nuts saying, oh, let's just do this because it'll be safe. No. This actually comes with reason. We've actually had proof that this works. So
look, we just had the beheadings in Oklahoma, since we're related to that, that was stopped by
an armed individual.
Somebody with a gun.
Well, and
right?
one of the things, we talked about flash news earlier. Mm-hmm. And one of the things you are starting to see more and more, and one of the good things about social media is we are starting to see an influx, at least of it being reported, of good guys stopping bad guys with firearms. There's stories out. There's a couple stories out of Detroit in the last month. There was a story out of Georgia not too long ago of a woman who was home. There was a story right up the road from us here of a young man who defended his home. There was
home invaders.
And there was two of them. He had his younger siblings in the house and, killed both of them. And they were armed and they were trying, lived way off the road. They had no reason to be there. He confronts them. They came into the house. They were armed and he killed them both. There are enough stories out there to support this that it has to be considered at some point. I can't believe that of all the magical mystery things that they try to throw money at and solve, we have to have this program and that program and this program and that program. Why don't we just have our Constitution to start? Let's go back to basics a little bit on that, and not be afraid to let good Americans.
How's about this? You want a national security program? You want a national security program? You want to spend federal dollars? Issue everybody a firearm.
Everyone who's eligible gets one.
Yeah,
all the time.
You want to be safe? Here you go.
Oh, well, but we have to at some point.
Why is that absurd?
It's not absurd.
Look, we're arming ISIS. We can't even. We're dropping weapons to them out of the sky.
That wasn't intentional.
How do you know?
It was supposed to go to the Kurds.
But did I say
there was that damn southern wind?
Yes.
And actually, Joe in the chat room, the guy I can't remember how to turn his mic on. Joe brought up a good point. You look at Switzerland. There's a gun in every home in Switzerland. They have a yearly annual shoot in Switzerland. It's like a national holiday.
Right. Did Joe just type that in the chat room?
Well, yeah, he didn't say that over his microphone. He can't remember how to turn it on.
I'm just glad he had his keyboard on.
The sun was in my eyes, he says. All right. I've been there, Joe. I've been there. Thanks for joining us. Jeez Louise. Good job, Rook. Hey, just speaking of Rooks, Royals did beat out the Giants tonight, so that's good news.
Congratulations to Kansas City.
Yeah, congratulations. So that's all knotted up. But,
I think all Giants fans should buy all American League fans a cup of coffee for that.
At least for that. At least a cup of coffee.
At least a cup of coffee. Or sexual favors. But we'll start with coffee.
It depends on what part of the country you're in.
Right.
So, when I look at Canada, and we have these incidents here, and I was talking to someone, they said, are we almost to the point where we're kind of like, and they used Israel as the example, we're just so used to it, and we're used to it happening more and more, because there has been a lot of incidents where Americans are randomly attacked, and they have had Islamist extremists as the attackers, and you see it on the news, and are we starting to become numb to it, where it's almost just like, and I know for me it's not, but I know a lot of people out there, I've heard somebody say, and I kid you not, these words, what's the difference if it's a gangbanger shooting an innocent person and an extremist shooting an innocent person? Either way, an innocent person's dying. And I understand the premise of that, but the reality is usually when the gangbanger shoots an innocent person, it's because they're a terrible shot. They're usually shooting another gangbanger. And I'm not giving them credit or anything like that, but the reality is what it is. Usually
that is usually
war,
targeted violence.
Right. It's targeted specific.
Right.
The problem with the Islamist extremist, it is random. They will take any opportunity target that they possibly can, and all they want is bloodshed. Listen.
And I want to be clear, because I know how that's going to be taken, what you just said.
Yeah.
That, look, we're not saying that somebody's life is worth less than somebody else. All we're saying is,
it's the intent,
if you're not
really.
if you're not in that culture, if you're not in that gang environment, then look, ISIS will target you whether you're a woman, child, whatever, just because you are an American or you're a Westerner.
Right.
Typically, that doesn't happen with gang members, unless you're testifying against them or it's usually gang-on-gang violence, usually.
And usually gang members, too, if they kill a kid, there's usually remorse. There's usually... I'm not saying... Listen, I'm not defending gang members.
Right.
And even though that we've talked about this before, if China ever tried to invade, I think they'd be a great asset on the West Coast to repel them, or ISIS. But the simple fact of the matter is like you said, it's targeted and it's business. It's like the mob in the 30s and 40s.
Right.
When they in 50s and 60s.
There is collateral damage.
Right. If there's collateral damage, and unlike the mob, where the mob, if there was collateral damage, they would actually police themselves, if you will. That was unacceptable. But the intent was not to hurt that child. And like I said, I hate to defend in most cases. Right. Yes, and I'm talking about the random shootings, the bullet that goes through the wall and kills the kid.
Right.
That type of situation. And I am not excusing their behavior, but I'm saying their intent is different.
Look,
and that's
typically
the
a
big deal.
gang member is not going to go into the middle of a shopping mall
and just murder people
and just start murdering whoever he sees. Typically. Right?
That's true.
ISIS will.
Yeah.
Not only would they do it with one, but they'll do it with 2 or 3 or 5, and they'll use small unit tactics in order to overwhelm any kind of resistance that they get.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. Look, we are at war with ISIS. Am I saying we shouldn't be at war with the gangs? I'm not saying that at all. But with ISIS or ISIL, we should at war. I still think Congress should declare war on that group.
I do as well. I think we should declare full war on ISIS. And listen, if we can handle this sort
How
of...
do you declare half a war? Or partial war?
Well, you can do half a war.
Like we declare partial war. Does that mean like we each get a deck of cards and we're just going to flip them?
Half a war. You get the Navy and the Marines.
You get the carrier, but no airplanes.
Right. Go for it.
And we're going to do like the Russians did in World War II. One soldier gets the rifle, the other gets the bullets. Go.
And the other thing, too, is I really believe that a lot of the gang members don't want to see our country wiped off the face of the planet. It's all usually about money and localized power. But the Muslim extremists want to see us destroyed as a nation, and they'll take out anyone they can in the process, and as a culture. And I think that's definitely something to be looked at differently. So, and by the way, if you took the same approach on arming everybody who was legally eligible, the gang violence, I bet you, would drop through the floor too.
Well, hang on a second.
There's a couple of overlay maps out there that prove that.
Let's think about this.
Yes.
Are American citizens
actively
fighting ISIS? If they're here on our soil, are we engaged in fighting ISIS?
I would say so.
I would say so also. Right. So are we not arming Kurds?
Right.
Arm us, government.
Drop. Can I get Can I get an airdrop here, please?
Right. It's
Can we get an airdrop?
SHR Media Studios.
We're fighting ISIS.
What's the difference?
Can I make specific requests on the airdrop?
Can I buy a vowel?
Can I buy a vowel? Damn it. But you know, you see overlay maps of where you have, and they're statistically accurate. Thanks, Sacco. Where you have high gun control, you have high person-on-person violence and gang violence. And when if you did allow more American citizens to have firearms who are legally eligible, then you would also see the gang violence.
I have gun control too. It's called recoil.
Sear set. Okay. We'll be back at 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Show, live on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberty, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Here's radio.
You asked a good question while we were at the break, and you.
Why do we always have these discussions off?
You actually asked the question before we went to break. You said, "How do you declare half a war?" And as we were outside, you mentioned it, and I said, "Well, you know, if any president could declare half a war to not declare full war, it would be this one." So
right, and then we had another discussion on a very important topic. How the hell do you miss a city on an airdrop for weapons?
I want to preface this with nobody loves our military more than our show.
Right.
And seriously, you know.
No, we do. We've made that abundantly clear. But hang on.
I know they make mistakes.
How do you miss a city on an airdrop? Look, you said it, we have bombs that we can put with a GPS and get it where it needs to go, right?
Yes.
You can't do that with a crate?
We have the technology. We can rebuild it. I mean, did the C-130 driver just take the wrong exit?
Right. Was the loadmaster just like, yeah, this looks good.
This is fine. Right. What is this? We're close anyhow.
I think we're over Jordan.
We're over Jamaica. Well, whatever.
We just flew over Moscow.
Dinner's in 20, guys. Let's turn this bad boy around.
Right.
Like, how does that even happen?
That's water beneath us.
We can put a missile through a window, but we can't drop a crate in the right town. Town. It's a city. You know, I understand it's a bad neighborhood, and I guess it's like a pizza delivery driver where you're like, any house is the right house. You just throw it at the front porch and leave. But still.
This isn't Papa Murphy's.
It's not Domino's here. We're kind of looking for the military items in the crate to get to the right people, and they ended up playing the wrong people. Oh, yeah. I just, that is a mind-boggler to me.
You know what a mind-boggler to me is?
What?
Have you seen this flyer in Georgia that the Democrats have put out?
No.
So the Georgia State Democratic Party put out a flyer, and it's got a picture on the front of two African-American children. They're holding a sign that says, "Don't shoot."
Right.
And the flyer reads, "If you want to prevent another Ferguson in their future..."
Wow.
Vote. Have the Dems gone too far in the state of Georgia?
Yes. Yes. And that's the State Democratic Association, right? The Georgia State Democrats.
Yeah, it's the Georgia Democratic Party.
Wow. I cannot imagine. Listen, we talk about standing on graves on this show from time to time.
Yeah.
There's times where you have to use and utilize the death of somebody for the right reason. And, if it's awareness or whatever. But when you turn around and the best part is now we're starting to find out that Ferguson isn't exactly cut and dry like they want it to be. And they do want it to be cut and dry as their narrative said it was.
It's cut and dry for
it's cut and dry
side of the officer.
180.
Right.
So
it is cut and dry. But this flyer reads, it basically talks about how the city population is mostly African American and that the police force and city government leadership is white for the most part. And it says, quote, "What are we going to do about it? If we want a better, safer future for our children, it's up to us to vote for change. The choices may not always be perfect, but the cost of inaction is simply too great."
Mm-hmm.
What is the implication there? Right, we want a better, safer future for our children. Why? Because the white cops are trying to murder every poor, black, defenseless child?
And a lot of this comes out of, listen, there's a lot of talk out there right now from polling that the African-American community is not showing up for this election for Democrats. And they're trying to mobilize that base because that's what's really carried them through the last 3 elections. Because they lost the midterms last time too. And they really need to get that again. And what better way than to scare the hell out of people who are uninformed?
So the Georgia Democratic Party has a communications director. His name is Michael Smith. And he gave a statement, went out in a Fox News article that they wrote. And it says, quote, "The fight for the right to vote and every vote to be counted is part of our state's history, a part of the fabric that makes Georgia what it is today. Our state and our democracy is stronger when more people participate, and we've seen what happens in places like Ferguson, Missouri, when voices are silenced."
Right.
So,
so
hang on a sec. Did he mean by that when voices are silent, because law enforcement officers typically don't speak out, right? They honor the uniform, they don't speak out, so they typically remain silent on most social issues and so forth. So maybe that's what he means. When people are silent...
Well, they're not allowed to speak out. Remember, they were told not to wear the wristbands.
Right. When voices are silenced, we see what happens in places like Ferguson. People have zero respect for the law. They have zero respect for life.
Law.
I did. They attack officers in their patrol cars.
Mm-hmm.
They try and take their gun to murder them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, unfortunately, the poor officer has to use deadly force in order to defend himself to go home safe to his family. Is that what this person meant?
Well,
we'll see what happens when voices are silenced? I bet that's what he meant.
No. That's not at all what he meant. What he's intimating here is that young voices are being extinguished by cops who just randomly kill young African-American men.
Oh, I didn't even read it that way because I was thinking rationally, but you're right.
and that if there's not a change, this is just going to happen more and more in the community. Again, and I know this beats the dead horse, and we go back to the poverty pimps and the race pimps, Sharpton, all those guys. But when are the Democrats going to be able to focus on the fact that most young black men in this country are killed by other young black men? You will always have...
It won't come out.
You will always have 1 or 2 horrific acts done by evil people. Doesn't matter what their profession is. It's always highlighted more when they hold public office or they're in law enforcement, et cetera, et cetera. But you're always going to have that sort of thing from time to time. There's nothing you can really do. People do snap at some point in their life, right, wrong, or indifferent. Some people just get to that point, or they were just really good at hiding it. But it is not this mass plan that they are trying to convince uninformed voters as to what the action that's happening on a regular basis is.
I saw that, and I was.
And what that is you know what? If I turned around and said, essentially, What's a good analogy for this? Every time a woman's raped in a gun-free zone, it's a specific that Democratic senator's fault, or or anyone who voted for that. It's their fault specifically. And I could even go as far as to argue now, because they're complicit, that maybe they could be held an accessory because they didn't put enough plan in action to help that woman to defend herself. As a matter of fact, they took the right to defend herself out of her hands. And if I was and I can say that because I'm a pundit on the radio, and I don't make policy, I don't drive policy, I don't organize voters in a party, anything like that. I'm not a political organization. If I was
we have an opinion.
We have an opinion. But if I was the RNC and I'm trying to get voters, and this shows you what the DNC does and how often that they exploit whatever they can, our elections are no longer about what is right and wrong. It is about myths, unicorns, and lies. They push these narratives to take away from what the real issues are in this country. And again, we talked about the flash media and in-your-face media earlier on. This is another one of those things where underinformed and non-informed voters are going to read that flyer and be like, oh, well, it says it right here on the flyer that white guys are killing black guys left and right. We got to vote for them, or our voice is going to be silenced. The lynchings will begin again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really, I know it's not criminal, but damn it, if you could get as close to criminal without actually committing a criminal act.
How about immoral?
Yes, highly immoral. Oh, I thought that was a given. I didn't even think I had to mention that. But
we do have some progressive listeners.
Sorry. But if you could get as close to committing a crime without actually committing it, I would say that is. If that flyer is ever used in a rally that turns into a riot, could you argue that he helped incite that riot?
I could argue it.
I mean, I know you'd have to say that was his intent.
I could argue most anything, though.
But his intent is to rally a mass amount of people to do a certain thing.
To overthrow the Republic, which is treasonous. What? Could you imagine if somebody had the testicular fortitude to indict Obama for treason because he's trying to fundamentally transform America? Heard it here first, folks.
I haven't got to the chat room a lot tonight, so I want to catch up on a few things. Ken, Dems are preparing for a reduction in voters amongst blacks and women by instituting heavy voter registration drive in all of America's cemeteries, funeral homes, and crematories. Joe he's got a bet with his dad going on. His dad bet him that just a few days before the election, you'll see Tumoresi get released. I believe that's true.
I believe that's true too.
I listen. He has a tendency to do things right around the time of elections that make him look like he's large and in charge, and I think that'll be one of them. And Ron said there was a major Democratic guy, he didn't give his name yesterday, who came out and said that people should vote Republican. So that's kind of, I'm telling you, and I know we throw Republican, Democrat, and we don't like to really, we like to go to conservative, progressive, liberal, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But I think you're starting to see more people who are centers, even libertarians, are really starting to go harder right now than they ever have. I think, we see what's happened in this country for the last couple of years. Then you look at cities like Detroit, as we talked about earlier, Chicago, New York, all those cities that have been under Democratic rule. Hey, listen, I heard a story out of San Francisco regarding building. And essentially they have a force first rule that if you are going to build anything in San Francisco, and this is a Democrat rule, you have to hire within the city, they have to be city residents, and you have to prove you try to hire city residents first before you're allowed to hire residents from outside the city. It doesn't matter how good their workmanship is, if they're whatever. And essentially this pundit I was listening to
how's that not been challenged?
This pundit was like, if you swing a hammer in San Francisco and you don't have a job right now, you suck. Because there's no reason that you don't have a job in San Francisco. But this is the same city. And this is his point, and I agreed. I'm not saying this is an original point for me, but this is the same city who is a sanctuary city for illegal immigrants and fight you when you turn around and say, illegal immigrants are taking jobs from Americans. They no, that's not true. But they have a rule in their own city. That's how liberals think, though. That's
how liberals what?
Act.
Okay. You mentioned Chicago. Have you heard about
Chicago?
Have you heard about?
Did you ever watch Married with Children?
Yes.
Did you ever see when when she was the meteorologist or the weather girl?
Yes. Yes.
Just read the card, idiot. I'm not an idiot. I happen to be a meteorologist. There's a storm front moving towards Chicago. I'm Chicago. But yes, go on.
That segment brought to you by complete randomness. In Chicago, early voting, there was this was called a calibration error. The voting machines.
Sorry. I just know it's bull already.
The voting machines automatically changed votes for Republican candidates to votes for Democrats.
How did that happen?
Well, because, listen, did you not hear me? It was a calibration error.
Oh.
You have to calibrate
it was opposite
the R and the D. Well, no, because a vote for the Dem was still a vote for the Dem.
Oh, so it wasn't opposite day. It was only half opposite day.
It was Democrat day.
So it was like quarter day.
It was Democrat
half
day.
Half a quarter day? I don't even know what the math is on this.
You can't do math.
This is bull, is what that is. You know.
Yeah.
The good part is
Jim Moynihan is the Republican representative and the candidate, and he tried to vote for himself, and he noticed the vote went for his opponent.
You can't make this up. That's the best part. You cannot make this up.
Yeah.
Only in Chicago, a city who is honestly one of the most violent cities in the world, because liberals run it. And everything is just a Democratic haven for the most part. Rahm Emanuel is at the helm. You know, never let a good tragedy go to waste, Rahm.
Right.
And now there's voting issues.
Right.
A calibration problem.
He voted in several of the races that were on the ballot in the state. And every time he would vote for a Republican candidate, the machine automatically registered the vote for the Democrat in that same race.
I love it when he went up to the proctor of the voting. He's like, I have a problem. Oh, what's your problem, sir? Yeah, I tried voting for Republican and went Democrat. Oh, no, that couldn't possibly happen. You must have picked the wrong name. I picked me. Are you a Democrat?
No. Well, sir, that's your first problem. I'm sure the machine's fine.
Well, this must be a calibration issue. If you'd kindly move on, we'd appreciate that.
Well, how is that a calibration issue? That is not a calibration issue.
It was it's calibrated exactly how they want it. That's not an issue.
That is a programming issue. That is the crap Sacco pulls on us to get us to play whatever sound he wants. It's programming.
This is so amazing. This can only happen in a place like Chicago.
So it's already starting.
Oh, no, and it's not going to fit. Listen, this is the beginning.
What else is going on in midterms? So in Texas, the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld their voter ID laws. It says their elections can go forward with their Texas voter ID laws.
Very nice.
There were 3 dissents. Ginsburg.
No.
Shocking. Sotomayor.
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
And Kagan. Sorry.
Kagan, not
Kagan.
Kegels. Totally different.
Yeah, is it? I don't know. Kagan. Like the auto parts store.
Like the auto parts store.
I don't know.
Which is the one that looks like she rode in on a broom 200 years ago?
Ginsburg.
Yeah, that's Ginsburg. Okay.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Right.
Actually, can you morph all 3 of them into one picture? We need that.
We
need to come up with a name.
The Baderberg.
Kata Ginza Soderberg.
Soderberg? Oh, man. Yeah, well, there's a shock. The 3 dissents. Ginsburg starts to scare me a little bit. We're stuck with Sotomayor for a long time unless she retires or something like that.
Yeah.
And Kagan is Kagan. And I'm glad, though, that the Supreme Court actually did the right thing here. And listen, if you feel that you should be able to get a free driver's license and free Social Security and free health care, but you don't need an ID to vote, you might be a liberal. And anyone who thinks that
might be a liberal.
Anyone who thinks that voter ID is some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Is some sort of prejudicial act because disenfranchisement. People can't afford IDs. You can get an ID for $15, and I can't imagine if you're over the age of 18 that you wouldn't have an ID for a litany of different reasons. First of all, how can you get a job? Most states you need to have at least a picture ID to get a job.
Not if you're illegal.
Whoa, weird, right?
Right.
And I know in Chicago, if you're dead, you can vote, so they don't need. Do we have to issue dead IDs?
No.
Oh.
No, not yet.
If
voter ID laws pass,
should.
If voter ID laws pass, that may be the next thing, right? Because then you just go with somebody's.
I predict that somewhere in Chicago there will be 101% turnout this year. That's a prediction. Or somebody will get 100% of the vote.
They don't need it now because they calibrated the machines.
They calibrated them, thank goodness.
Right?
Dude, a calibration issue. That is the biggest line of BS. I mean, that would be like an airline saying that it had a fuel flow problem. No, the plane crashed. Oh, but it was just a fuel flow problem. 280 people died. Yeah, but it was just but that doesn't lead to the ultimate result. At the end of the day, I don't care what caused it. Fix the damn thing.
Right.
And do an investigation. If you are the city clerk's office, how are you not doing an investigation on that? Let me rephrase that. If you were the city clerk's office in any other city except for Chicago, Detroit, New York, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, we could probably throw Houston maybe. We can throw a couple other ones out there. Massachusetts, Boston. How do you not demand an investigation be done? Even if it was, listen, we talk about this when we talk about Benghazi and a lot of other things. If it's a legitimate mistake, you still want to know that. And you still want the truth to come out. So you do an investigation. You own the problem. You resolve the problem. Then you find out why it happened and how to keep it from happening again. That is your job.
Yes.
Not just to tell the guy who voted for the other guy when he was trying to vote for himself, which still that's the greatest story in the world. It's just a little calibration issue. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
It's not a big deal. You'll be fine.
You're going to love you can't make this up, folks. And like you said, the shenaniganry and it is
shenaniganry.
Yeah, it's like tomfoolery and jackassery has just begun. You're going to see this more and more, and I hate to say it, the Georgia thing was a litmus for other states to test on what the response was going to be. And we talk about this. California, usually stuff like that comes out of California first. California has a tendency to try to test things like the really divisive things, the anti-gun laws, all that. Asshattery is a good one, too. All that stuff usually, that was from Ag. All that stuff usually originates in California. So I'd like to see other states actually being on the forefront of liberal progressive pussy stuff. It just makes me feel good inside that we don't live in the only state that's batshit crazy.
Okay, we're going to play a game. Everybody in the chat room, get ready.
Chat room, you are ready.
So we have some toss-up states.
Okay.
And I'm going to name a toss-up state, and I want to know if it's going to flip from Dem to Republican. Ready? Alaska. Mark Begich is the incumbent. Dan Sullivan is the Republican challenger. Will Alaska flip?
Yes.
Yes. Arkansas. Mark Pryor is the incumbent. Tom Cotton as the Republican challenger. Will Arkansas flip?
No, because Cotton has the word cotton in his name, and that's obviously like saying Chicago, it's racist.
Copy. What's the chat room think?
So far, Looks like a
Nobody
majority
cares.
with everyone but Ag is saying that it'll be a flip in Alaska, and actually it looks like it's going to be a flip from the chat room too in Arkansas.
Okay. Colorado. Mark Udall is the incumbent. Cory Gardner is the Republican challenger. Will Colorado flip?
Colorado will flip. And
You
I
think so?
I say that based on their response to trying to secede for guns.
Okay.
and
What's
gun
the
rights.
chat room think?
Chat room, starting with Ag, no. Ken saying yes. Golf, no. Let's see. I'm waiting for Joe to chime in. Keep going. I'll get you
So
caught up.
two to nothing. All right. Iowa. Bruce Braley is the incumbent. Joni Ernst is the Republican challenger. Will
Ag's
Iowa
a yes
flip?
in Colorado.
That's a 50-50, which means we'll keep it blue.
I don't think Iowa flips.
Okay. Louisiana. Mary Landrieu is the incumbent. Bill
Gone.
Cassidy is the Republican.
Gone. Landrieu's gone. She's been hammered.
Okay, so Louisiana's a flip.
Hold on, I got to get caught up in the chat room.
Okay.
You're just rattling off.
I want to get this before Stocko closes the door. And I'm doing this alphabetically.
Go ahead.
Okay. Michigan. Gary Peters is the incumbent. Terry Lynn Land is the Republican challenger. Will Michigan flip?
Yes. I really do. I think
Really?
I think Al Franken's done some damage to Michigan.
All right. Michigan's a
Detroit,
flip.
and you have Detroit. You have Detroit.
UN's in Detroit.
Yeah, but you have Detroit really starting to make a strong push for gun rights, more than they ever have the last 2 years. And I think that it's going to be a flip. I really do. Ken's with me on that.
Okay.
Ag saying Louisiana will flip.
Okay.
And Iowa, maybe not. Gulf is saying a flop on Iowa. Ag's with me that Michigan's a yes.
Okay. So,
Joe's in there. Louisiana's a yes. Joe says Michigan, no. Political Reaver, no for Michigan.
no for Michigan on a flip. Okay, but I think it's still a majority of yeses for Michigan.
I think
correct?
Michigan flips, in
All
our
right.
opinion.
Montana. Amanda Curtis is the incumbent. Steve Daines is the Republican challenger. Does Montana flip?
Yes, Montana flips.
I was a yes on a Montana flip also. Chat room.
Chat room's
Concur.
coming up. We'll warm it up, move on to the next one. I'll get caught us up in the chat room.
New Hampshire. Jeannie Sheehan is the incumbent. Scott Brown is the challenger.
Gone.
You think
She
so?
is gone. I know a lot of people back east. I know a lot of people that are in New Hampshire right now.
Uh-huh.
And I can tell you, first of all, if you saw the debate the other night, Brown wiped the floor with her. She couldn't get away from Obama fast enough. And
Is that going to be enough to turn New Hampshire? That's notoriously
it's turned
lit,
blue,
right?
Right. It's turned blue over the last 15 years or so. It was notoriously red before that.
Okay.
And it is a red state rising, I believe.
All right.
I think you're going to start seeing them come back. Let's say get caught up. Ag is a yes. Montana for Ken, yes. Gulf, yes. Ag, yes. Ken says New Hampshire stays the same. Joe wasn't sure on either. Ag and Joe say yes for New Hampshire flipping.
Okay.
Gulf says New Hampshire's full of zombies. And Ags agree with me that Shaheen is nuclear poison right now, and I agree.
All right. North Carolina. Kay Hagan is the incumbent. Tom Tillis is the challenger. North Carolina.
Stays.
Stays?
Yeah.
Chat?
Get caught up on the chat.
Copy that. South Dakota. Rick Wieland is the incumbent, or is the Democrat. Mike Rounds is the Republican challenger.
Dakota's starting to see a big boost in oil. They have a pretty. It's one of those weird states that they're conservative by nature, but they elect liberals, and I don't understand why they do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say.
What are you saying?
I'm going to say that it goes.
You're
I'm
saying
gonna say
it flips.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say it flips.
Chat room?
Let's see. Getting caught up. North Carolina is a draw, maybe even a recall. Ag says that North Carolina does not flip. I agree with that. Joe's not sure. Maybe his
Joe, you need to commit.
Maybe his mic's not on. I don't know what's going on with that. Ken saying rounds in South Dakota. South Dakota flips. Ag's playing 50-50 on South Dakota.
So we're counting it as a flip.
Ag's saying that it'll flip by a hair.
All right.
So we're going to go flip.
We're counting South Dakota. Last one, West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Natalie Tennant, the Dem. Shelley Moore Capito. Capito is the Republican. Does West Virginia flip?
I'm not gonna work here anymore. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna go West Virginia stays.
Okay. Chat.
Let's see. West Virginia will be a sweep. First time ever, said Ken. First time ever, West Virginia will be a sweep.
So West Virginia is going to go red, he says.
Yep. Golf saying no's. Egg says it's a tough one. North Carolina, Hagan did not show up for the debate last night.
Interesting.
So that's kind of an interesting, and I wonder how they're going to weasel out of that one. But I think
West Virginia.
West Virginia is a split right now in the chat. It looks like.
Okay, so what are we saying?
I'm saying
blue.
it stays.
Stays blue.
I'm saying it stays.
So what the SAC Pack has, what we have done here, folks, together, is we have said that based upon those flips, our projecting, or our Sackhead listeners and us combined are saying that Republicans are going to take the Senate 52-48.
Yeah, and actually, Ag, you know what? Ag just put us over now because now it looks like he's saying West Virginia flips.
He does.
Yeah, so 47.
Are we keeping it as a flip, or are we keeping
it pushes
it
us
blue?
over.
It does push us over.
It does push us over.
All right, so the SAC Pack now has it 53-47, with South Dakota and West Virginia both flipping. All right, so we'll see if only we had some sort of election night coverage where we could see if we were right.
Hey, you know what?
What?
I know of a place that you can get election night coverage. This whole thing was a commercial.
Do tell.
Here on the SHR Media Network, election night starting early in the morning. We'll play C-SPAN coverage. Then we'll go to Pundit Pratt's Southern Sense. Annie and the crew's gonna handle that, and then we're gonna go right over to Dan Butcher if he's feeling better. And then Evan Miller Report starts our coverage. We will be simulcast here on Pundit Press. We also have the exceptional one, Ken McClinton, who'll do his show that night and contribute, along with some other great people. Tomorrow, Jackson, you know her as Tammy J on Twitter. Andrea Kay. Rooster will be involved, and all of our great other contributors. I know, I think Ag's going to be helping us out that night. Jersey Joe, I'm going to have to teach him how to use a mute button. It will be Election Zilla, as Ag likes to call it, and I am okay with that. Election Night in America 2014 here on the SHR Media Network. We will be back for the last segment of the show here in a few moments here on SHR Media.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Here's radio.
Welcome back, Sackheads Radio Show. I am your host, Sackhead Clint. So we're moving along, and I want to talk about Ebola. I don't want to talk about Ebola. I hate talking about Ebola. However, have you heard about the Ebola czar?
Yes.
That we have now?
Yes. Because if there's one thing we need, and I've been saying this for a long time, is another czar in this country.
And thank goodness, thank goodness this president has the foresight to pick somebody who is a highly respected physician, has been studying Ebola for years and years and years as a virologist, and who understands viruses and how they work and how to control it. Right?
Yes. You want to have a doctor, somebody who's in charge, somebody who really
understands. That's who he probably would pick.
Right, because that would make sense.
But he didn't.
I actually like it. If you go to SHR Media, Ken wrote the Gilligan's Island closes air traffic article, which is brilliant. We have it right in here, and we have it linked to his page. It's a brilliant article. His choice for czar was actually better, and it was Ginger. Because at least people would pay attention to her, right?
Right.
I mean, there would be something, and if you could get somebody...
Why would you pay attention to Ginger?
Why wouldn't you?
Good point.
She was smoking hot.
I was more of a Marianne type.
No, see, I'm a redhead person. I don't know why.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
I don't know. I'm more into the jeans and flannel.
Yeah, I know. That's all you keep wearing. And you wear your shirts the same way she does, which is weird, all tied up in the bottom.
And I wear the same shorts.
Right.
Which is what you did when I walked in. So,
yeah. Anywho,
Ron Klein, Clinton
Staffer,
Chlamydia. I don't know what his name is. Ron. Let's just call him Ron. Ron was appointed.
Ron Burgundy,
and Ron refused to testify at the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, who was holding hearings on something totally unrelated as to what his job function is going to be, Ebola.
Socko anytime with the crickets.
He was invited to join the Health and Human Services Department officials that were also going to be testifying at the hearing, but he didn't think... Yeah.
Johnny on the spot. It's still appropriate, Socko, seriously.
He was former chief of staff to Al Gore and Biden.
Gore's and Biden's, that's right.
Gore and Biden.
So, he knows everything there is about cursing in public and global warming.
Right.
So that's good.
Right.
I understand he's chief of staff, and listen, Democrats going to turn around and say, well, it isn't necessarily what he knows and doesn't know about Ebola. It's his ability to organize the people that knows and don't know about Ebola.
He's the frickin' czar! He's the guy in charge.
I agree.
He should know something about it.
How do you do that? How do you make that jump? I'll tell you how. Hey, this guy needs a job and some extra money. And we know he's a team player.
Don't we have a head of CDC?
Yeah.
Don't we have...
Shouldn't he be the czar?
Don't we have a surgeon general?
Right.
Maybe. Are we supposed to have a surgeon general?
We're supposed to have a surgeon general.
Are there not teams of doctors we could put together for this?
Somebody? I don't know. Dr. Ben Carson, maybe? Maybe somebody that actually understands what's going on.
Something.
Somebody with a little medical... You know what? Jersey Joe, with his medic background, to me, is a 10-time better choice than this D-bag.
Right.
Because at least he knows something about communicable diseases and how to protect yourself and not be able to transmit, et cetera, based on his training. What did this guy have?
A Boy Scout would know more because they have CPR training and know to have a pocket mask and gloves. I mean...
And he reports to all people, Secretary Rice. Isn't that just the ultimate kick?
Did you say Jerry Rice? No. Because that makes sense.
Yes.
In this bizarro world.
In this bizarro world, Jerry Rice might as well.
Right? We're going to have you report to Jerry Rice.
I want to welcome you as the head of the new Ebola czar. Your new boss will be Jerry Rice and Donald Duck. And I think you'll find these guys, if you sit down and have a little bit of a beer summit, they don't know what the hell they're talking about either.
Well, Jerry Rice understands a thing or two about passing the ball. You know what I mean? He understands he can take the ball and he can go. And that's what we need here. We need a real touchdown with this. So I decided to bring Jerry Rice in. That guy knows about touchdowns. And that's what we need here. We need a touchdown.
Hi, this is Jerry Rice for Ebola Awareness Month.
Right.
What?
The president needs a touchdown, and since I've caught a lot of them...
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the new czar of Ebola.
I'm not making fun of Jerry Rice. I like Jerry Rice.
No, I have no problem with Jerry Rice.
I love Jerry Rice. But I was using it to be absurd with, why do you pick this clown?
Because he was a Democrat
this ass
lackey
clown
that needs a job. That's why he was picked. I mean, seriously. I'm shocked it wasn't Al Gore. Or, or some like Carville, just like somebody who has no right being there anyhow. It's insane to me to think that he was the best choice in this. How many people are in this country? 314 billion or whatever, million.
At least three, because we're sitting right here.
Right.
So we can confirm three.
Three chat room listeners right now. 10.
Right.
Quick math. 10. But you have to you can't sit here and tell me in the face that this idiot who knows squat about Ebola can be the czar of it.
Well, wait, he's not a czar. He's the Ebola response coordinator. How does he know how to coordinate a response to Ebola? Okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. You're going to take a temperature rectally, and I'm going to watch.
You have 3 pair of gloves because we're really tight in budget right now. You can blame the Republicans.
Yeah.
Joe says he has better knee pads.
I don't want to know why.
Ginger's the czar. No, yeah. I don't understand why this choice even came up. I just... It shows you how out of touch, really.
Well, what does that guy know about anything? Mr. President, here's a picture of you with 3 donkeys and a bubble machine. Perfect. He's the man for the job.
I'm going to go to my number 2 guy. Joe, you have someone? Yeah, Ron's pretty damn good. All right, Ron it is. IT off in 15 minutes, do a presser, and send that little twerp out there to tell everyone about it. Bye. And why do we still have czars? Why do we use that word? I hate that word for some reason. It's
a word to illustrate how
overpower and oversight, and I understand that.
Exactly.
But listen, if the tragedy is bad enough, and listen, if this is smoke and mirrors, which I'm guessing it is because they don't know what the hell they're doing, and I think we've proven that time and again. They're talking about now the 21-day restrictions if you come from any one of the 3 countries that's really hitting hard with Ebola right now. They're behind the 8 ball. They're just starting to get caught up on screening passengers, which should have been actually shutting off air travel from Africa. But they're decided to laser beam people in the head and check their temperature from 55 feet away. They don't know for sure how Ebola is transmitted. They say it's not airborne, but there are some people out there who do say it's airborne. There's no solid evidence. This is a smoke and mirror political appointee to make it look like they're out ahead of it. The real proof that they're hosed and they don't know what to do is that this week the president said he would call up the National Guard for the Ebola emergency if need be. He will not call them up for the border.
Right.
But help us all, he will call them up for Ebola. And again, is he saying if all heck breaks loose, he's going to have to, like, if it really starts to grab hold and all of a sudden we start having problems, is it going to be that sort of thing? Or just their resources for transportation or whatever? I don't know why he would call up the National Guard right now or even say it, because if they have the handle on it that they think, then there shouldn't be an issue. But I think it's amazing. And I'm not saying we should be taking Ebola lightly. Don't get me wrong. We need to take Ebola seriously. That's why I'm kind of pissed at this appointment for the czar. But on the other hand, the fact that this is so serious, he's going to declare that the National Guard could get called up if need be, but he has yet to do that for the border crisis, which is just as serious and could be letting people with Ebola into this country as we speak. So he screwed himself in that comment, in my personal belief. It shows that he has no idea what the hell is going on. And it's scary to me. It really is scary to me.
So, and nobody will...
Mohammed Morsi wasn't available for the czar position.
In the United States, they're so scared about banning travel outright.
Yeah.
Or restricting travel outright because it's racist.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's racist. That. We don't want to destroy their economy, and it's racist. I have a list of countries, and it comes from internationalsos.com, the countries that have banned or restricted travel. So here is a list of the racist countries.
And go.
Antigua and Barbuda.
Well, naturally.
Belize.
Uh-huh.
Colombia.
Uh-huh.
Dominican Republic.
Ooh.
Guyana.
Uh-huh.
Haiti.
Will Guyana flip this year? Oh, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Jamaica, because their economy is booming. They could totally afford to do it. St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Lucia.
Wait, what was that last one? St. Kitts and... Oh, okay, St. Kitts. Go on.
Yeah. St. Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh.
Kenya. No, they're racist.
They're just self-loathing, as Ken says.
Right. Cape Verde, or Green Cape.
Cape Verdean.
No, Cape Verde.
Yeah.
Cameroon. Equatorial Guinea.
I love Cameroons.
I love Cameroons. They're so delicious.
Yeah.
Should I go on?
Yes.
South Sudan.
A racist.
Gambia.
Racist.
Gabon. Rwanda.
Racist.
Chad.
A racist.
Chad is a racist. That one
guy, yeah, no, I remember we hung out with that
ridiculous.
guy one day and he made that comment.
And South Africa. Racist, there's history there, so we don't really need to say racist.
Right.
Right. It just goes without saying.
Right. I get that. So, did you mention the UK?
No.
France?
No, but I heard they have them. They're not on this list.
I heard they had been two. I heard the UK was actually starting to discuss it now. So, Ken
Nigeria
says Chad has that one white friend.
What's that?
Ken says Chad has one white friend.
The Sackheads.
Yeah, the Sackheads love Chad.
Doy.
Great guy. He just has an older mentality, that's all. He just doesn't know. He's from a different era. Oh, man. His father was that way. He's that way. You know, he
can't help it. It's not his fault.
Egg brought up an interesting point about Cameroon that I did not know. They have a baseball team. This is directly from their website, and I quote, thank you, Egg. The national baseball team of Cameroon is the national baseball team of Cameroon. That was a direct quote from their website. And they are closing the border. That's their website for the national baseball team
of
Cameroon. And they're closing the border.
Hey, you know what Disney movie they would love?
Yes?
What?
No, you tell me. I'd like to know. What
The Incredibles 2.
Electric Boogaloo. Do you have a country whose national baseball team explains who they are to their own country on their website, and they're smart enough to shut off travel from Ebola?
Right.
Right? And we can't figure it out. We can't figure it out. Egg, thank you. That actually adds gravity to the entire story now. The national baseball team of Cameroon is the national curling team of Canada is the national curling team of Canada. Oh, no kidding. Who,
the president of the United States is in fact the president of the United States.
He's just wearing a jacket, like in Blazing Saddles. It says Prez on the back instead of Gov. It's in case anyone doesn't know who I am. You're the only guy with huge ears smoking in a broom closet. We kind of got it figured out.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Listen, Ebola, fortunately, it looks like the more and more people are coming out of it. It looks like some of the treatment in the blood that's being used is coming out, and that's all great news. Don't get me wrong, folks. It is a very scary thing, and I know people are like, we're making a big deal out of it, and I think to a point, mainstream media is using this to deflect against ISIS and some other things. They're the Cameroon Cammers. Ag in the chat room asked what their name was. I don't know.
They're the Cameroons.
The Cameroonians. It's like a Bugs Bunny skit. Now batting for the Cameroonians, Bill Smith. They're all NBA, MLB players that have been paid to move to the country. And we had the incident with the nurse who knew she had the fever ahead of time, which tells you that even in the medical field, they don't necessarily always grasp the reality of it. And this was after her friend was diagnosed with it. She still got on the plane to fly. We don't have anything in place to stop this. We're not taking it seriously. We don't even know what the hell it is. Most of the information that we're using to make all these decisions are based off of a study done by the CDC over 10 years ago. Our most current information isn't that current. We have this magical tobacco, which I still love this. I love the fact that the tobacco industry might save us from Ebola. I'm just saying. For me as a smoker and just watching the ridiculous amount of money that's been spent on anti-smoking ads and the amount of taxing that gets put on cigarettes and other tobacco that essentially force people to make a decision versus letting people making their own decision and deal with the outcome. The irony in all of this, as my friend Paul would say, it's ironical that all of a sudden they're going to be looking at the tobacco industry to save us from Ebola.
There are going to be commercials. Smoke like a chimney, drink like a sailor.
Winston-Salem, hey, remember us? You need us now. If you'd like to get your medicine, you can find it inside of a pack of Newports. It's just awesome. Oh, man. Brought to you by the same people that saved your asses from Ebola. Newports, the cool, fresh smoke. You can't write this. That's the best part. You can't write this story out. It doesn't magically happen.
But you know what? Liberals don't smoke.
No, none of them ever smoke. You know what? All smokers are dirty conservatives who should just pretty much die at the bottom of a pool unless you're the president.
Obama smokes.
Right, unless you're the president.
Is he a conservative?
And I'm pretty sure Pelosi smokes. Look at her. You can't tell me that she doesn't
Come on, with a name
smoke.
like Pistol Grip? You've got to smoke.
If there is a billboard for what smoking can do to your skin,
she's got an
it's
oral
Pelosi.
fixation if I've ever seen a broad with an oral fixation.
You know what I love? And I know a ton of people who always do the whole, I quit smoking and I got healthy and I feel great, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And as soon as you put a beverage in their hand, an alcoholic beverage, a cocktail, if you will, the first thing they do is seek
Light
out
up.
all the smokers. I go to a bar now and I can stand out in that patio. I would be the most popular guy on that patio. And every yoga, granola, crunchy, earthy, crunchy, hair-legged, armpit hair chick on the face of the planet that's never put anything bad in her body because my body is my
hang
temple.
On. First of all, that's a gay bar you were at, and those are all dudes in drag. But go ahead.
Either way.
Their
body's their temple, and they will never do anything that... Ooh, do you have Marlboros? I would love a Marlboro because I'm
Is that a
having
menthol?
Is that a menthol? I like it because it doesn't taste like cigarettes.
Right.
It tastes like candy.
Right.
It's like I put a piece of spearmint in my mouth. It's heavenly. It's just like going au naturel.
Mint is natural. Fire is natural. It goes together.
Oh, thank you for the cigarette. Yeah, so like I was saying, I made my husband take my last name. I really hope.
And then you said, I know, dear, I'm married.
Yeah. Could I have at least hyphenated it?
Right.
Oh, man. If tobacco, dude, that's going to be the best movie in the world if tobacco saves us all. If the Farrelly brothers don't do a movie on that right now, they are missing it. They're missing huge. Joe Camel. We could start calling him Dr. Joe Camel. And you could put the big mask. You remember all the Joe Camel stuff years ago that they turned out? Oh, he's making kids smoke, and he's the reason kids smoke. And
yes.
No, kids were smoking before when Lucky Strikes tasted like crap and had no filter.
Yes.
Kids have been smoking for years. It's just something they do. Right, wrong, or indifferent. You know what Joe Camel did? Just gave us cool stuff when we smoked. Or at least we're being rewarded for it now.
Right.
I had a hot green hat with a pink writing on it and Joe Camel on the side. Before, you know what I got? I threw up because Lucky Strike sucked. You know, but now, and then the whole, well, that's what caused cancer. Folks, if you put a cigarette in your mouth and you light it, or you put tobacco in your mouth and you light it, or you drink alcohol, or you eat something
What if you put
that's bad
tobacco
for
in
you,
your mouth and you don't light it, but you spit it out?
Same thing.
Okay.
Any of that, if you don't realize in some way that could have an adverse effect in your body, you're an idiot.
Yes.
You're an idiot. I am an idiot, but I am a knowledgeable idiot.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Those same people are holding cell phones up to their ears.
Yes.
Okay, you may get lung cancer.
They're the same person who drowns trying to save the dolphin.
I may get mouth cancer.
Right.
You're going to have head cancer.
You're just going to have one giant, huge ear on the side of your head.
Right.
You're
going to grow a big penis out of your eyeball or something. I mean, sorry, Sacco, I didn't mean to make that shot at you.
You can't even tell it was removed.
Or that you keep trying to put it back. Tip first.
But if you don't really think, if anyone out there ever said, I remember when all the anti-smoking commercials started, and there was this woman who was speaking with one of those really cool voice box things that makes you sound like Darth Vader. And there was this whole thing on how I smoked 15 packs a day. And
right,
cancer
with the
took my
stoma.
and this and that and blah, blah. And I turned around and I'm like, who shoved those in your mouth and lit them? You smell a cigarette the first time. It doesn't smell good.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, should we smoke? Probably not.
Did I ever tell you how my brother got me to never smoke a cigarette?
No. Made you eat it?
7 years older than me. 16 years old. I was 9.
Ooh.
9 years old. He's out front smoking. And I was looking at him because I looked up to my older brother.
Of course.
He looks down at me and he takes a cigarette out and he puts it in my mouth and goes, smoke it. I said, I don't want to smoke it. He goes, smoke it
now.
Smoke it or I'm going to punch you in the face.
If that does...
I'll get to the story about how he taught me to take a punch here in a second.
Had to do with smoking as well.
So I said, okay. So I put the cigarette in my mouth and he goes, take it in, just breathe it in. Just like suck it in and breathe it in. So I did that and I puked. Like I was done. He slapped me on the back and said, good, now you know never do that stupid shit again.
Did it work?
Well, yeah.
But you still dip. He didn't do anything about that.
Nope, because he's a pussy. No, I'm kidding. So here's how he taught me how to take a punch, since we're right on time here. And we're going to wrap up anyways. Hold that door, Sacco. So again, 16 and 9. It's a very impressionable age for me. He sits me up on the trash can, and he says, okay, he says, have you ever been in a fight? 9 years old. I was like, no. He goes, okay, sit up here. And he wrestled. Like, he was not a weak 16-year-old
No, your
kid.
brother's a big dude, too.
Sits me up on the trash can, and he says, okay, close your eyes. I close my eyes, and he lit me up.
I love your brother.
Wham!
Your brother is
Knocked
so awesome.
me off the trash can like I tumbled. I literally, and this is like the old metal ones, I literally tumbled off, knocked the whole thing over. He hit me hard. And I got up, and my eyes welled up with tears, and he looked at me, he says,
Don't you cry.
Yep, he goes, if you effing cry, I'm going to hit you again. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. So I sucked it up, and he goes, okay, good, let's go in the house and get some ice cream.
Old school right there.
Old school right there, but you know what?
It taught you how to take a punch.
Dude, my first fight when I was like
Didn't
10,
cry.
that kid hit like a sissy.
Yeah, well,
right after I got hit by a 16-year-old.
Your 18-year-old brother knocked you out cold. So.
right. I was like,
folks, it has been a great show. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Make sure you check out the financial update by Windrock Wealth and our good friend Chris Casey over there. Check them out, windrockwealth.com. Make sure you check out The Rooster Saturday night here on SHR Media. Jersey Joe, political reaver of common sense here Sunday night on SHR Media. Election night, you want to be with us, shrmedia.com. Chat will be flying all day.
and did you say the chat will be flying all day?
Oh, yeah, baby.
The chat? I do have our the Sack Pack predictions.
Yes, Sack Pack predictions. We'll monitor that for the night.
So we'll monitor that. We'll see how many of y'all got correct.
And Ag didn't like the name Sack Pack. I think it's oddly appropriate.
I like it.
I think Sack Pack works. We may have to roll with that. Thank you so much for being part of our Sack Pack. I think that's outstanding. Make sure you check out the Evan Miller Report, 5 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow, followed by the exceptional one himself, Ken McClinton, here on the SHR Media Network. We will see you next Wednesday night. Sacco, play us out of here, would you?
Sacco? Is that an empty vodka bottle next to Sacco?
Yeah, wow. I didn't even see him guzzle it. That straw is huge, though. Good for him.
That's not a straw.
Give you the best in conservative talk. The Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.